Welcome back, everybody, to the Inside Texas Basketball Show. I'm your host, Evan Veith, as always, right next to me with Keenan Womack, who is about to transition through some job stuff, but we're not making any transitions on the basketball show like we were with baseball because basketball season is right around the corner, Keenan, and I'm extremely excited, even though football is a little bit overshadowing it with this Ohio State game coming up.
Yeah.
How excited are you for the season coming in?
Football or basketball? Because both, really. But
I'm thinking basketball, but you can also say football.
I'm very excited about both, man. I'm really looking forward to. Also, the little event we're throwing is going to be fun at Woodrow's on Burnett. It's going to be a lot of fun too. So
yeah, for those of you who aren't already subscribed to Inside Texas, you're doing something wrong. First of all, because Inside Texas is the best place to go for all of your Texas sports needs: football, basketball, baseball. We have it all covered here, from recruiting to camp intel, reports, and of course the games. You can get a full year of access to The Athletic with the purchase of Inside Texas. You can join for just $1 in the first week. Get that Inside Texas promotion and everything alongside of it. And of course, that comes with, well, it doesn't come with, but you're going to hear a lot about Paul Wadlington, who is one of our best writers. He just had a very funny meme put on his article today that I did not expect to see on our front page, but you can buy his Thinking Texas Football Longhorn Prospectus. It is the best place to go to learn about the new recruiting class, the team coming into the season, and everything before this Ohio State game, which is, it's only 17 days away, guys, when you're watching this. It is really close. Football season's over, almost here. But of course, we're here to talk about basketball, where, Keenan, you've got a chance to kind of be in some of these conversations with Coach Miller. We're finally getting press availability. It's a chance to talk to him about this new team, which, man, it feels like we've been talking a lot about theoretical Sean Miller for so long. We're getting into talking with him, and also pretty soon actual basketball. So if you want to pull up that article, Connor, we've gotten 2 articles from Keenan the past week. That's part of the reason you should definitely be subscribed to Inside Texas. Is his great reporting and also some of the tailgates and other fun stuff that he alluded to that we maybe get into after the ad break. But first, we're going to talk about probably the most important thing on people's minds when you think about this Texas basketball team, which is perimeter shooting, because it felt like they did add it in the portal, but not a ton of it. It was definitely a problem last year outside of Trey Johnson, and it's not a ton different outside of one of these good names highlighted, Cam Heide. But what was he saying about perimeter shooting? Because I assume this was one of the first things people were asking.
Yeah, definitely one of the big topics was asked about. And, of course, it was the great Kirk Bowles, who's not one to shy away from a question.
Kirk.
Love that guy. He basically asked, who are the shooters on this team? And Sean Miller gave us 3 answers. He said Jordan Pope, he said Camden Heide, and he said Kendall Weaver is coming along as a catch and shoot guy. So Pope is obvious. He's been a guy that shot really well at Oregon State. I have my questions about whether he could separate against SEC level defenders off the dribble. So I think what they're going to do with him is run him in a lot of actions off of screens, so that he can become more of a movement shooter, as opposed to a guy who creates off the dribble for himself. Camden Heide is a guy that he started shooting pretty well towards the back half of last year. His numbers don't pop off the page, but he is a guy whose role increased a lot. He played his best basketball in the NCAA tournament, in the Big Ten tournament. That's kind of where he came along. Obviously, he's famous for that crazy dunk he had in the national championship game. And then Kendall Weaver, who, he has not been a great three-point shooter since he's gotten to Texas. I mean, just frankly. They're saying they worked a lot with him on his three-point shooting. They also mentioned Simeon Wilcher, the St. John's transfer, as a guy that could potentially be a catch-and-shoot threat. It's not the most satisfactory answer, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's a little concerning that there's not a 40% three-point shooter on this roster anywhere. Trey Johnson was the best three-point shooter last year, but he could do it from every level. He was a guy that could create for himself. He was a guy that's
an NBA player.
He's a top 6 pick in the NBA draft, and he's a guy that is 4th, I believe, overall in NBA Rookie of the Year odds. So, yeah, it's a special talent, and it's hard to find guys like that. That's why they come along once every 20 years for Texas basketball, last one being Kevin Durant. So, I think kind of his answer was they've worked with everybody on their three-point shots, and they're hoping more guys come along and that it's kind of a team effort. But there's not really one sniper on this roster. So I think Camden Heide is probably your best bet as far as the guy who's going to lead the team in three-point attempts and three-point shooting percentage. But he believes that guys like Weaver and Simeon Wilcher can come along and become three-point threats as well.
I agree with what you have on Heide. I think he is the number one kind of sniper on this team right now. Should be an improved shooter. Weavers is always a tough one because he's actually not a terrible career three-point shooter. It's 36% on his career on 140 attempts in 3 seasons, which shot pretty well at UTA. Was not
Yeah,
very
he's
good
great
at
at
Texas.
UTA.
Yeah, not good, especially in 2023. Okay, in 2024 he shot a little bit more there and made a few more, but shot a little bit less. Excuse me, made more on percentage-wise. Hopefully, a three-point shooter here in the corner, but I'm not confident if it has to be Weaver or Pope kind of coming off ball when he might need to handle the ball a lot this year because Mark Wiltshire are kind of your only other guys that can handle it. Speaking of Wiltshire, I assume as you go down to this transfers that have stood out that he's going to be one of them that they talk about because, of course, Miller brought in a very good transfer class, a lot of different players coming in from different places. Guy from Xavier and Lucina Troyari, but also high-level guys like Heidi and Wiltshire who played for really high-level teams. So what was he saying outside of just shooting for these two?
Yeah, he's very high on Heidi. I think part of it is he went after guys who had good coaches before, right? Like you look at a guy like Camden Heidi, played for Matt Painter, who I think is a top 5 coach in college basketball. I know he doesn't have the hardware really to show it, just from a program development standpoint. I think he's excellent. And then Sammy Wiltshire played for Rick Pitino. Now, his system's much different from Pitino's system, which relies a lot on the mid-range, not as analytically driven as some of the things Sean Miller likes to do. But I think he takes a lot of stock in the fact that these guys did actually play for great coaches before. Mm-hmm. And, you look at pretty much all the guys they brought in. I mean, Traore and Dalen Swain were guys, that came from Miller's program. And then Vokia Titus, who, played at Florida Atlantic last year and was good there. So I think he takes a lot of stock in that these guys have played in good systems before. He talked a lot about how great Matt Painter is, how good Purdue's program is. And then Rick Pitino, obviously, super experienced guy. He also made note of the fact that Wiltshire has developed over 2 years and is a different player his sophomore year when they played him than he was his freshman season. He's entering his junior year now. And he was a starter on 2 seeds, so that's an important thing to note as well. St. John's finished as a 2 seed last year, lost in the Sweet 16 to Arkansas, I believe. Sweet 16 or around 32, I can't remember. But I can't remember. But he talked a lot about the programs these guys come from. They come from winning cultures and how important that will be to bring to the Texas program.
Definitely. And like you said, you kind of see where the confidence can come from in them is elevating players and elevating roles, especially with the shooting, because they were playing at these high-level programs already. They're a year extra into their development as players in general. And now they're going to have to take bigger roles on a lesser team, which, of course, you don't want Texas to be seen as a lesser team than anyone, but they're not going and playing for a 1 or 2 seed. They just need to be really strong role players on a good SEC team.
Yeah.
And that's where the confidence comes from when you've been coached by the Patinos and Painters. Another guy who needs to be a very strong role player, and you can already see it below, is Kendall Weaver, because we've already talked about he needs to kind of add that three-point game to him, but he's now a veteran in this locker room, one of the few guys that you see returning anyway, but 3 years now in the program. Player that everyone loves, but it's mostly from the athleticism and from him going after loose balls, being a scrappy player. What more are we going to see from Weaver as a returner, apart from just kind of that hustle play?
What Miller really talked about with Weaver was how his injury last year, he thinks that cost Rodney Terry and Texas some games, which I could see. There's a few games there that were close calls that maybe he could have been the difference in. He's a guy that gets stocks. He's a guy that attacks the basket. He's a guy that gets great rebounder for a guard. I believe he averaged like 3 per game last year or something around there. I think he averaged as many as Shedrick did per game, or like very similar. He calls him very unselfish, makes plays on defense, very exciting player. But, as they referenced earlier, he's going to need to be some kind of shooter for this team.
Yeah.
Probably a catch and shoot. I don't see him developing the ability to shoot off the dribble all of a sudden. That's kind of an innate trait. That's not really something you can develop. That's kind of just a skill you have or you don't. So if he can become a catch and shoot corner 3 guy, that completely opens things up for spacing. It opens things up for new actions off the ball. It makes Kendall a really even more important piece to a team that really needs that badly. So I think Kendall Weaver is a guy that they're really happy to have back from an experience standpoint, and somebody that they can use in different ways potentially.
There's not really like a WAR stat like there is in baseball for basketball. You can talk about win shares or D LeBron, whatever that stat is. I think, like he says, the win share aspect of of Weaver is that he hustles and plays well on defense. But if you get a healthy year of him as a good catch and shooter, corner 3 specialist, I think that's a very high level player, probably a 6-man in the SEC that would be one of the best. And I think that's what you're hoping for with him. But now we're looking over to more of a star player here because Dalen Swain really should be the number 1 on this team in 2025. And he has the ability, as we've talked about before, to be a first-round pick in the NBA draft this next year. And hopefully Texas could even convince him to stay one more. But what are we thinking about just coming into the year with Dalen Swain? What was Miller talking about with him?
Yeah, I mean, Swain is a guy that he recruited out of high school, or recruited him for like a year. He committed to Xavier. He's a guy that had offers from a lot of schools. Ohio State really wanted this guy, and they were heavy on him. They're heavy on him in the portal as well. But, I mean, coming out of Xavier, he was a guy that had offers from everybody. Kentucky had him for a visit. Like, they tried to get him for a visit. He was potentially going to visit Kentucky, and he committed to Texas after his visit to the 40 acres. So they were competing with, like, top programs for this guy. So it's really huge that they got him here. Super important two-way player. I mean, I think easily the guy with the highest pro potential on this team, like not even really close in my mind. Maybe if Okie Titus takes a big leap, something like that, if he becomes like a short roll passer, a guy that can shoot threes or something. But Swain is going to be the star of this team, I think, pretty easily on both ends of the floor. He's a guy that can create stocks, steals and blocks. For those who don't know, it's kind of a basketball nerd term. You just combine the two. It's like how many turnovers do you create per game, basically. So, yeah, I think it's really important that he's here. And Sean talked about how he's continuing to progress.
Yeah, if you can scroll down a tiny bit, Connor, because I just want to talk about this. What it's saying right there is that Swain, man, he had 27 points with 3 threes. He basically had his whole entire starting lineup's point total in their loss against Illinois to end the year. He kind of showed at the very last time he played at Xavier, like, hey, I've got this ability to really step up and be a true scoring threat. And I think that's something that Texas is going to try to tap into. It doesn't need to be 27, but can this guy get to 16 points a game and really be an impact player like that on offense for Texas? There's a path to that happening here.
Yeah, I think it's all about his 3-point shooting, man. If he can shoot well from 3, then you got a whole different player that you can use in a bunch of different actions. And we'll get to that in the second half of the video, kind of how they plan on using him.
Yep, and really quickly, old Richmond Jiri, he is someone that they brought back to the staff. We don't need to go too into what he said, but Maligi is one of the kind of important background members of this Texas staff, and it seems like Miller's really happy to have him back as someone who's already had some experience coaching here. Yeah,
Uric Maligi is a really important guy, a great recruiter, great culture guy, and they're very happy to have brought him back to campus because he was part of the last administration at certain points as well.
And just like Maligi, you want someone who knows the state of Texas and really knows the Austin area for you. And that's why we're going to send it over to Laura Baker before we get into the next article.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
Thank you, LC and Laura right there. I thought that was a pretty good transition compared to some of the last ones I've had. This is more of another article that we got from Keenan a little more recently, just yesterday, talking a little bit more into what Miller was talking about, just past kind of quoting what he's saying. We're getting a little more of our take on what's going on here. And, of course, when you think of Sean Miller offense and also what you think you didn't have with the Rodney Terry offense, it's that pace identity. It's Miller has this great ability to run the floor with his players, something a point guard who can distribute in transition. Rodney Terry had the exact opposite of that, and it was slow in the front court. It was bad in the back court when they were trying to get into transition. Just nothing was going for that Texas team, and that's going to be different here, isn't it, Keenan?
Yeah, man, pace and space is the name of the game, They want to run the floor after misses and makes. That's kind of what he emphasized, right? Fast execution, quick strike. Everybody touches the ball in the half court. Ball having energy. That's something we have not seen much of in the last 3 years. So using the entire court, right? It's not one guy dribbling around and 4 guys watching. Yeah, everybody's making moves. Unselfish cuts, setting screens, just movement, man. Make it difficult to guard you. That's really what the name of the game is for Sean Miller, is make it hard to guard you. Don't let those guys sit around and conserve their energy when they're on defense, man. Make them work. Make them work by moving the ball quickly. Ball shouldn't stick. And it's going to be an exciting offense, man, regardless of how the shooting goes. And specifically, I asked this question because I was asking about Dalen Swain and big-to-big pick and rolls, which they ran a lot at Xavier, where Swain would be the ball handler and Fremantle would be the roller. And so he kind of emphasized, Dalen Swain is going to be a kind of versatile player on the offensive end. He's going to be a ball handler. He's going to screen. He's going to be off the ball. Size, passing, ball handling. He's going to be involved in a lot of action. So I think it's really important that they emphasize his versatility on the offensive end. And I think that's something Sean understands how to do, as he did it with him last year.
And speaking of bigs, we've got 3 new ones. If you want to scroll down here, Connor, 3 new ones on this roster between freshman John Clark, but more importantly, very seasoned veteran Lucina Traore, who didn't get a chance to play at Xavier last year despite coming in as a transfer, got injured. And Matas Vukiatitis, which we've talked about already, is a potential NBA player, does need to do more, but was really good as a true freshman at FAU last year, came over and is going to be possibly a starter, but he and Traore are definitely going to be the main centers in this rotation, as well as Nick Cody, a returner, and John Clark. That big on big screen action is very important, but what else about these 2 players makes them an important part of this team going forward?
They love contact, man. They're big physical guys that love banging around in the paint. That's what you have to have in the SEC. We watched these SEC front courts last year. We watched what Janai Broome and Colin Murray-Boyles did to the poor guys that they were running out there in the front court. It was not pretty. Cost them a lot of games, getting killed on the boards, getting beat inside. I don't think that's going to happen with this team. They do have their concerns with shooting and such, but I think the strength of this team certainly lies within the front court. I think your 3 best players are probably front court guys, if I had to venture a guess, right? Matas, he's 7 feet tall, potential as a short roll passer, which would be awesome for the kind of actions Sean Miller runs. He could potentially be a very important cog to what they do in offense and kicking out, depending on what the defense is running. If they're trapping the post touch, throw it out, get some open shots. Great hands on both of these guys. Traore also double 2 years in a row at Long Beach State, right? He was a very talented, impressive player. They said he would have been the starting center last year at Xavier had he not had the ACL injury. He's cleared for non-contact, by the way. They said he should be cleared in the next couple of weeks, and that was last week. So anytime now they should be clearing him for contact, be able to bang around in the paint like he wants to. Warrior mentality, just 2 physical guys that love playing basketball and aren't just there because they're tall.
And as much as with Vukiatitis, you wanted to see him develop either shooting or that short roll passing you've already referenced, the biggest concern you have about him is something that could just be a problem is his inability to take that contact in the SEC, because he was kind of a skinny guy over in Florida, and it seems like both he's probably getting a little bit stronger here with his Texas strength and conditioning, but also sounds like he's okay with kind of initiating that contact, being the one to take it and give it out, which is what you really want to hear your coach talking about with a center who's maybe more of a lengthy shot blocker compared to Traore, who's this physical rebounder. But that 2 kind of working in tandem with their play styles and then also learning how to do what the other one does well. It's going to be really important for this team.
Absolutely, man. You got to be strong in the front court in this conference, man. They're not playing around. Look at Florida's front court, dude. It's ridiculous. They're going to start 3 6'10" guys this year. They're starting to hawk at the wing. He's 6'10". So you got some competition out there. But I think this Texas front court is easily top 4 in the SEC. Pretty strong on that.
Yeah, I think, and that's where you want to be with this team, is they're going to develop more in the backcourt over the years and maybe even just this offseason. Let's go to Coach Miller and what he's learned from specifically Steve Sarkisian, but also some of these other Texas coaches. They do a coach retreat, which is just the cutest thing in the world, just to have all the coaches going out and hanging out, maybe having a few beers by the Austin Lake. And it mentioned people like Jarrett Elliott, who's a multi-time national champion, Coach Flo, track, another national champion, Bowman, of course. Coach Sark, who is, number 1 team coming into the year, he knows how to build a roster and establish a culture. And that was the word he really was kind of looking towards here. What struck you about how he talked about these coaches, and specifically Sark, when, I don't know who asked this, but good question for Miller.
Yeah, a lot of reverence for these other guys, right? Like very high praise for all these guys. I mean, think about how many, everybody, when they think of Texas, thinks football and they think of Sark, but think about the other programs, how successful they've been. I mean, Schlossnagle won his first year. Didn't go the way they wanted in the postseason, but I mean, they won the SEC regular season. Very impressive to do in your first season, specifically after the last couple of years of Texas baseball. So, that all of these things are going on. And he talked about Sark and the Culture Wednesdays, and that's always been a thing that Sark has talked about. And it seems that they're trying to take that kind of model, build team building. But also, a couple of these guys just got to campus or aren't even here yet, right? Declan DeRue and Luis Obiora were guys that just came in the last couple of weeks or just getting here now. So he kind of made note of that as well. That, you know, we didn't have our whole team here, but we're trying to build the culture as much as we can without those guys. And then when they get here, we'll incorporate them as much as possible. I think it's really important that he's taking things from other coaches, and he made note of the fact that sometimes the best way to learn isn't just X's and O's, it's how to develop a program, how to build a culture. And he's been doing that by talking to the other successful head coaches at the University of Texas.
It's funny. There's both. It feels like a lot of pressure on Miller and not a ton on Miller in this first year, because you look at this school, and I talked about it when the Directors Cup rankings kind of came out, and Texas ended up on top. But I said, what sports are underperforming? And, you know, Coach Flo's track team was as good, but obviously basketball was the biggest stain on what Texas could have been, because they just weren't very good last year. Yeah. And you look at the other kind of major sports: football, #1 preseason; baseball just won the SEC. You know, softball just won it all. Volleyball's right there when they're doing it. Women's basketball is a Final Four level team. And then you had just kind of basketball over here. So I think people know that it's not going to be a 1-year turnaround with Miller, but also it's, you know, Schloss did it pretty quickly. All these other top tier sports Texas has are really good. Basketball's not quite there. So there is that onus on him. But I do think it sounds like Texas has the right guy in charge when it comes to thinking about the culture of the team and how to build a group going forward.
That was the vibe I got, man. I really think it was a great hire. I thought it was a good hire when it happened. I think they just need a guy who's inventive on the offensive end that can recruit, and he can do both of those things. And I really like for the program, you know, this might be not an amazing year. You know, I think if they can finish 500 in the SEC, that's a success, or maybe a little over 500. But going forward, I think this thing's going to be very competitive on a national scale.
Yeah, winning 8 games in the SEC is going to get you in the tournament this year, maybe a second time, and have 11 or 12 teams from that conference.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us today over at Inside Texas. Of course, if you want to go over to the website, InsideTexas.com, you're going to get just the best coverage of football, basketball, and baseball at the University of Texas. You can get Inside Texas for just $1 in your first week. As a bonus, your membership includes a complimentary year to The Athletic. Great deal going on for the Longhorns. And an even better spot to go if you wanted to get as deep as possible for football is in our description, where you can find both the ebook and the printout of Thinking Texas Football, Paul Wadlington's 2025 Longhorn Football Prospectus. From recruiting to the SEC to the team itself, it's the best spot to go if you want to learn about this football team. 17 days to go. And then after that, not too long until basketball, Keenan. I'm excited. I know you are. That's going to do it for us over here at Inside Texas Basketball. Thank you all so much for watching.